let's get into the big topic now that I know everybody has been discussing. And with Mookie Betts coming back, as much as the Dodgers welcome that, they're facing a roster crunch. Like there's no two ways about it. We've been discussing this for several weeks. There's been some clarity recently with comments made by Dave Roberts. Going into today, knowing that Mookie was going to be back for the first game of the series against the Brewers, I expected that they would just option Andy Pages. Struggling in center field, Mookie's playing right field, Teoscar's in left field. Like there's not a clear spot for him. He was cooled off at the plate a little bit, and it was kind of an easy decision. Send him down to Oklahoma City, let him reset, kick the can down the road with some of these harder decisions that you're going to be facing. Not only do they not do that, but they decide to DFA Amed Rosario, who was back with the team for all of 2 weeks, basically a little less than that. Didn't really play anyway. I know you kind of answered this earlier when we had our super chat, but what would you, if you were, I gave my answer, maybe you're going to end up having the same one. What would you have done to get Mookie back onto the roster today?
No, yeah, and we talked about this like a week ago, and that was kind of what we came up with, was that they would option Pages just because, like you said, with Mookie playing outfield, there's less spots there, and Pages is still like a young developing player. He's not someone you just want glued to the bench every day. Like if he's not playing up here, then he should be in AAA at least until September 1st or whatever, getting every day at bats. So that to me seemed like the obvious move. But like you said, though, like Rosario just wasn't getting playing time. And I know a lot of us have kind of been wondering like why that was the case, just because if you look at the numbers, he's actually having a good year, and he's shown that he could kind of hit both righties and lefties. He's got some versatility, and they went and got him at the deadline. I know it's not like they gave up really anything, if we're being honest here. Like they gave up a pitcher that they signed to a minor league deal. So they didn't lose like a prospect or anything. So it's not upsetting from that standpoint. But, it definitely felt like there was a role for him on this team, like whether that be as a platoon partner with someone like Gavin Lux at second base. Like, Gavin's struggled against lefties this year. So that could have been a spot right there, or somewhere in the outfield. So it was surprising from that standpoint. But when you look at the way they were using him, it's not surprising, like, considering he wasn't playing at all. And kind of reminds me of like Michael Busch last year, when it was like they weren't calling him up, and then when they did, they weren't playing him. So it's like he is not in their future plans, and lo and behold, they ended up trading him in the offseason. So they do kind of like telegraph how they feel about some guys with their playing time. But I was, when they got Rosario, I felt like there was a role for him, and it just kind of never materialized.
Yeah, I think Rosario and Edman seemed a little redundant to me, and so I was surprised that they acquired both of them. Looking back, like the only thing I can sort of think is, one, like were they not sure? I wasn't fully convinced. I know Jeff was pretty strong on this possibility. I think Blake, I'm not sure about you and Scott. I didn't think that they would DFA Kike Hernandez even before his turnaround. But like maybe that is something that they were considering, and they didn't know, how much could they really count on him, and if like would he have been DFA'd had he not, gone to the optometrist to get some eyeglasses that have now corrected things for him. But yeah, I mean, like Rosario on the surface, yes, good addition for the team, but when you then layer in Edman and then even Kiermaier, like I just I couldn't see where they were ultimately going to play all these guys. Is it, like I said, if it wasn't maybe concern about Kike, was it they didn't know if this miracle chiropractor was going to fully solve Max Muncy's issues, and if he wasn't going to be coming back, then there's your answer. Like Rosario can play third base. But yeah, I mean, just a really strange situation. And I know that Dave was asked about it multiple times, and we have some of the videos up when that thing was brought, when the topic was brought up, and he kept saying Rosario is a platoon player. That's why we have him here. But like you mentioned, Rosario's stat, like he was hitting everybody. And when comparing him to the other guys that the Dodgers had been trotting out there up until, Freeman was able to come back, and now Mookie's back before Kike's turnaround, like Rosario was much better than them. And so it never really made sense.
Yeah, I'm with you on Kike. Like as bad as he was, I don't think like there was ever a DFA like possibility in there. Maybe if it like continued really bad for like another month, but he's obviously beloved within the organization, and like even when he's doing bad in the regular season, he still has that postseason pedigree. And we saw like even going back to last year, two guys they got at the deadline were Kike and Amed Rosario, and one of them made the postseason roster, one of them didn't, and Kike was the one who made it. So he was kind of even when, and it's not like he had a good year last year either. So like even when Kike was going bad, he still has that standing within the organization. And I have seen some people ask like, why not Nick Ahmed? And my response to that would be like, let's just give it a week here, and we'll see if he survives the next wave of cuts that are coming when Muncy and Tommy Edman get back. Um, but yeah, I mean, it just like you said with Dave Roberts saying he's a platoon guy, like that never really made sense to me. But that's clearly how the organization felt about him. And I also wonder like maybe Amed Rosario went and talked with the front office or whatever and said, hey, like this isn't working out. Like I know there's a chance I'm going to be cut, and if you guys want to go ahead and do that, like that's fine with me. And now he could catch on with another team, I guess. I don't know, like I don't know if they were planning on keeping him the whole year. I don't know if you just say, all right, like we'll accommodate your wishes. But if they were like, we're gonna DFA him in a week anyways, like we'll do you that solid of being the first guy instead of the third guy or whatever. But who knows? Like it's kind of a weird situation
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, maybe that ended up being the driving factor because I don't even like you said, the Dodgers have multiple like this. Rosario's not the first, and he's not going to be the last. Like there are more guys coming down the line that are going, and they know that. Not only again, I felt like they could have kicked this can down the road by sending Pajes down to OKC. And then if you wanted to do DFA right now for whatever reason, if you compare like Rosario to Nick Ahmed, and I know Nick Ahmed has had some nice moments, he's probably more not probably, I think he is more of a pure like kind of shortstop, which they do need at this point because they don't, at least for now. I think Miguel Rojas will start every day in the playoffs, but it's a matter about getting the veteran that Miguel Rojas is to the finish line healthy at this point.
Yeah.
Um, I still probably would have done Nick Ahmed because yes, you have target dates for Max Muncy and Tommy Edman, but as unfortunately as we've seen this season, as we've seen in years past, the minute you start like, oh, this guy's definitely coming back and planning on that stuff, that's when
Yeah.
stuff goes awry. Like, so now, like, if knock on wood, I'm not wishing injury on anybody by any means, but if something does happen, then what? Like, are you going to look back and think, oh, I wish we had Ahmed Rosario? But then to your point, was it him at this moment right now? Because maybe he did say, hey, like, I know I'm not really playing. I know I'll probably get cut at some point anyway. Like, can we just get this over with now so I can move on? Uh, I guess that's a possibility. I have seen some comments both in the chat and on Twitter about Jason Hayward. Again, like I told you, like I think you were on. I think we were when we did the. I forgot we did the kind of emergency live show because of River
Mhm.
Ryan on that one. Like Hayward's not going anywhere. The only place Hayward might be going is on the injured list if they
Yeah.
decide his back is bothering him. They're not going to cut him.
Yeah, no, for sure, and he's a clubhouse presence as well. So like even if he's like you said, if he's not a guy that's going to be on the postseason roster, you just throw him on the IL, let him hang out in the dugout to finish out the year or whatever. Um, but yeah, I mean, kind of just lost my train of thought if we're being honest. But I think what I was gonna say is now the fact that they DFA'd Ahmed, like they might have to see him down the line now. Like who knows where he's gonna end up? Could be the Padres. Like I'm sure there's a team out there that could use a guy who's hitting 300 this season with good speed and could play 4 or 5 positions. Like that's kind of my fear and why like I was not necessarily on board with it is now he could end up somewhere else and now you might see him down the line. Whereas opposed to like if you DFA'd Nick Ahmed, I don't know if teams are lining up to sign him, and even if they are, like I don't think you necessarily mind that if you're the Dodgers. So it's just kind of a weird situation overall.
Yeah. So sticking with your point, Hawaiian Kira has this super chat, which thank you for that. She says, what are the chances she's talking about Amed Rosario was picked up by a division rival? Feel like this decision could bite back. I have seen a lot of that concern expressed for multiple people, both like in the chat and when the announcement was made during the afternoon. It's valid, but I think what we're gonna have to see is like with waiver claims, it's the inverse order. So the better record you have, the lower you are in terms of priorities. So the White Sox, I don't think that they will, but the White Sox like will have basically first pick type thing. Uh, if although we'd have to check the standings after that, assuming they hung on for their big win against the Yankees. Uh, so I don't know if he necessarily makes it down to the Diamondbacks or Padres. I think some of that boils down to like, will a team that's not necessarily going anywhere even want to put in a waiver claim, or do they just let him kind of keep going down the line? I don't really have a feel for that. I don't know if you might feel strongly one way or the other, but I'm not overly concerned, at least right now, that he definitely makes it to like a postseason. I guess I would frame it as it's more likely that maybe he ends up with like a postseason contender more so than somebody specifically in the NL West.
Yeah, and look, I might even stay in the NOS. Just kind of popped in my head. Like he feels like a Giants player, like for sure. And their record is worse than the Padres and the Diamondbacks, so they would have first crack at him. So that wouldn't surprise me at all if Farhan puts in a claim there. They're still kind of in it, trying to get in it, I guess. And I feel like a guy who hits 300 with no power and could play multiple positions is just the perfect Giants player.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to see how that ends up unfolding.